of the Third World Fire will be a political murder, which will take place in a country of the East. Just a short time afterwards and overnight, then the enemy will very quickly invade the countries, such that defense will no longer be possible. So it sounds like that the Chinese may actually murder whoever's running India at the time to cause confusion and immediately invade into the country and overrun India. Only a very few people will be in the position to flee and get out, and the destruction will rush in like lightning, completely unexpected and surprising. 3 main waves of the Russians will cross over into Europe like a 3-headed dragon. The lower head will go through Czechoslovakia and then head to the northwest, make its quarters in the Nab Valley in Germany. The second head will roll straight west and overrun the country. It will push on into Saxony and then go straight across Germany. The third head of the war dragon of the Russians will come roaring from the northeast to the southeast and destroy everything in its path. The main target of the Russians seems to be just wiping out Germany, as well as when they're wiping out Germany, suddenly from the south there are, it says, swarms of hornets flying over the heaven. The thousands of metallic shining messengers of death screamed towards Germany and exploded and burned Germany completely to the ground. So apparently the Germans have upset a few people, and the Russians are after them, and the Chinese are after them, and the Arabs are after them. And it talks about total destruction with neutron waves and 3R radiation with roaring fire that brings destruction totally. There's a gigantic corridor of death, it's called, will stretch from the south to the north, from Czechoslovakia up to the North Sea. It's caused by the Chinese. There's so much destruction that all life is extinguished. No life form can even cross into it. There's so much disease, bacteria, and radiation in there that no one goes into that zone at all. Goes on to talk about there's no snow on most of the mountains. It's all yellow. There's a deadly color, it says, contained in from bacteria and disease. Most of the weather is gray and rainy at this time. And there's so many deaths, it's just amazing. There's plagues and poisons. There's plagues arriving out of the disease from so many bodies, which we have no defense against, and take a terrible toll. It says Italy and France will be shaken by the sans culottes, whatever that is, who will destroy any semblance of order with killing and burning. Interestingly enough, Paris will be gone. It'll be destroyed by its own people. The inhabitants themselves apparently will just burn it down. Perhaps we'll see something like what we saw in Los Angeles with the riots here. So apparently Paris is going to fall into the same problem. It says that the church leaders will be massacred in France because of the cowardice of the Pope, and he hides out. Well, actually, the Pope has already run and hidden, taken off for South America, leaving all of his churches to be burned to the ground, and the Catholic religion pretty much is just all gone. Part of Scotland will sink into the sea when a gigantic flood rages over the whole land. High as a mountain, it says, it pulls everything underneath itself, destroying and bringing death, in order to make different islands sink into the wild waters. So Scotland's not a good place to be. Talks about murder and mayhem all over the East. And it goes on for a long period of time. Then, interestingly enough, it says towards the end of it that the Pope says the people of Earth will, after the end of the world fire, says there's not hardly anybody left. 2/3 of the people are dead all around the world, and most of Europe is totally gone. And the Pope will then come out of hiding in South America and try to take over again and reestablish Catholicism, so once again he can have control over all the people that are really left. But it's a very dangerous time. At that point, people are just, the ones that are left are, I guess, apparently just stunned by all the war. And there's going to be a lot of cults and a lot of things, different religions springing up and trying to reform themselves to take control over the planet. The same old stuff that caused the war, once again, is going to try to get a hold of it. Well, I think that's about enough for the prophecies, especially the World War III part. These prophecies were 76 through 81 they were given. Time has gone by, consciousness has changed. Even though there may be some war, I have no doubt that it will not be that bad whatsoever. I don't think the world is really heading for its destruction like it's portrayed here. Although it is quite possible that the Chinese might do something. At the moment, we've got the old Chinese in power, and they're coming into Hong Kong in '97. So we'll have to be careful and see if they do take the opportunity to actually invade into India, as this suggests. I'm also aware that even our own government, the CIA, and our own powerful people are probably just as aware of these prophecies as anybody else, and they have to be. And I think anybody who's been watching for the last few years has grown up with all sorts of prophetic things, either in the Bible or whatever, made aware to them. So I think even if some of these things begin, like if China does begin to attack or a war breaks out in Europe, something can probably be done to stop it. I don't think there's any way it's going to lead to the destruction that we're talking about here. But I thought if nothing else, I felt obligated to at least tell you what's in the prophecy book and try to laugh it off and lighten it up a little bit and learn to just keep yourself in the light. Learn to develop your spiritual self and get that inner feeling of confidence and reliance, and this will mean really nothing to you. It will just appear as just a story that couldn't happen to you. And by any means, do not let any sort of fear or anger swell up in you, because you won't be affected by this. As long as, no matter what happens out there, as long as you can spiritually keep yourself in a point of light and surround yourself with your own energy of light, then you won't be affected by all the fear, hate, and anger that gets unleashed during these coming times. Okay, well, if you haven't burnt yourself off completely from these tapes now, there's a few more to go. And I promise you that all the rest of the tapes are far more uplifting and more positive than this one is. And again, just remember that prophecies are just warnings. It is interesting to note, though, I'm curious, though, to see if some sort of civil war does kind of rise up in America. Our recent elections aren't suggestive of a civil war, but they're certainly suggestive that people are starting to take more of an interest in the country. They're distrustful of a government. They're distrustful of a government that keeps hidden bases, secret things from them. We know the government's been lying to us for years. There seems to be some separation of power within our own government, where certain levels of the CIA and NSA seem to be operating cities underground and large groups of people that are outside the law. It's even suggestive here in UFO circles that we could be on the moon or Mars with small groups of our own people who are trying to live above and beyond the planet Earth using technology which is not available to those of us here on the surface world. So that these even may be some of the causes of the war coming up. So it'll be interesting to see how history unfolds. But for myself, I'm going to try to take part in how history unfolds, by helping myself and other people to at least live without fear, and perhaps if we can spread the word a little bit more about mass consciousness, we can actually avert all of this. So I think that's our job, that's our role. We need to find ways to find peace with ourselves, and then find ways to share it so it multiplies, so we can change mass consciousness. Ever since I've heard about the Billy Meier contacts and the Plejadians, that's the part that's always stuck out of my mind, that phrase they said about us needing to avert our destruction by a change in mass consciousness. And I totally agree with that. And I think that's what we really have to all work on, is affecting this mass consciousness that is so illogical. Okay, you can fast forward now, and that's the end of the prophecy tape.